Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Today's story is called The Waitress Who Delivered Coffee to the Wrong Boardroom. A simple mistake, but little did she know, this small blunder would turn her life upside down in ways she never imagined. Let's go back to our main character, a young woman named Emma Brooks. Emma had never been someone who fit into the polished world of New York's elite. She didn't care for the glittering nightlife or the extravagant parties. She was more comfortable with a paintbrush in her hand, dreaming of someday opening her own art studio. But for now, she worked as a waitress, scraping by just to make rent. She was used to making ends meet, but it was a tough life, and things were getting harder. It was a late afternoon when Emma's best friend, Jenny, convinced her to go to a blind date. It wasn't something Emma wanted to do, but she had promised Jenny she would at least try. "Come on, it'll be fun. You'll meet someone nice," Jenny had said. So, Emma reluctantly agreed. Dressed in an old secondhand dress and worn-out shoes, she headed to the upscale restaurant where she was supposed to meet Kevin, the man Jenny had set her up with. When Emma entered the restaurant, she felt out of place. The place was beautiful, filled with well-dressed guests sipping expensive wines and laughing like they belonged. Emma's heart raced as she walked through the room, trying to find the table she was supposed to sit at. Her eyes scanned the room, and she muttered under her breath, "Table 7, table 7. She stopped when she saw a sharply dressed man sitting at a corner table, looking at his phone. That must be him, she thought, taking a deep breath before walking over. She smiled brightly and said, "Hi, you must be Kevin." "I'm Emma, nice to meet you." The man looked up, startled, blinking a couple of times in confusion. He paused for a second, before responding, Hi Emma." His voice was calm, but his surprise was obvious. Emma, thinking nothing of it, took a seat across from him, nervously fidgeting with her napkin. "I know this is awkward, blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." He opened his mouth to correct her, but hesitated. Something about Emma's unpretentious demeanor caught his attention, and instead of correcting her, he decided to play along. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, finally smiling faintly. Emma laughed nervously, taking a sip of water. "Tell me about yourself, Kevin," she said, eager to fill the silence. "What do you do?" He hesitated for a moment before responding. "I work in tech," he said vaguely. Emma, not understanding exactly what that meant, replied cheerfully, "Tech? Like coding and apps and stuff? I'm terrible with computers, so you're way ahead of me on that." He gave a small smile but didn't say much more, seemingly content to let her keep talking. For the next few minutes, they talked. Emma shared stories about her job as a waitress, her struggles with paying rent, and her dream of opening an art studio someday. The conversation flowed surprisingly well, despite the awkward start. She felt more comfortable than she thought she would, and there was something about him that made her forget her nerves. Emma found herself laughing, telling him more than she had intended. She couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to him. But then, as she was about to ask him more about his work, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Emma's stomach dropped as she read the message, and her face turned bright red with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered for just a moment, then he nodded. "No, I'm not," he said, his voice tinged with guilt. Emma's heart sank as she stood up quickly, grabbing her coat in a flurry. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she muttered, barely able to meet his eyes. "I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." She turned and fled from the restaurant, her face burning with humiliation. Liam watched her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity stirring inside him. He hadn't meant to let the mistake go on for as long as it did, but there was something about her that made him hesitate to correct her immediately. As he sat back down, he couldn't shake the thought of her. He wondered if he would ever see her again and why the thought of never seeing her again bothered him so much. The next morning, as Liam sat in his penthouse suite overlooking the skyline of New York City, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl he had met the night before. He replayed the conversation in his head, remembering how genuine she was, how she wasn't interested in his wealth or status, and how she had been completely herself. It was a refreshing change from the women he usually encountered, those who only saw his money and nothing else. Meanwhile, Emma, in her tiny apartment, groaned as she flopped onto the couch. "That bad, huh?" her roommate Jenny asked, peering over her laptop. Emma sighed deeply, burying her face in a pillow. "Worse. I sat at the wrong table, Jenny. I talked to some random guy for 20 minutes thinking he was Kevin." Jenny's laughter echoed in the room, and Emma groaned again. "I just hope I never see him again," she muttered, but deep down, she couldn't help but wonder if she would. The next morning, Emma woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. She rubbed her eyes, groggily reaching for it. It was a message from Jenny. "Are you still alive after that dinner? You should have seen your face when you realized you sat at the wrong table." Emma groaned, still mortified by the previous night's blunder. She quickly typed back, "Yeah, I'm alive. But I don't think I'll be going on any more blind dates anytime soon." As she sat up and looked out of the small window of her apartment, she couldn't help but laugh at herself. She had never been good at these kinds of things, but last night was a new level of awkward. She had no idea that meeting someone like Liam Parker would change everything. Meanwhile, Liam sat at his desk, staring at the view of the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse. The early morning sunlight illuminated the skyline, but his thoughts weren't on the business deals waiting for his attention. Instead, they were on a waitress he had met the night before. Emma Brooks. He kept replaying the way she had talked about her life, her struggles, her dreams of one day opening an art studio. There was something so genuine about her, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't sure why, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to see her again. He picked up his phone, scrolling through his contacts until he found Jenny's number. He hesitated for a moment before tapping send. A few seconds later, the phone rang. Back in her small apartment, Emma tried to shake off the awkwardness of the previous night. She had promised herself she wouldn't get too caught up in it. After all, she had her own life to focus on, her own dreams to chase. But deep down, there was a small voice that wouldn't stop whispering about the man she had met. She sighed as she pulled on her worn-out sneakers and grabbed her coat, ready to face another day at the diner. She had bills to pay, a dream to chase, and no time to waste on what-ifs. As she walked to work, she couldn't help but replay the night in her head. The strange connection she felt with him, the way he seemed so different from the men she was used to. And then there was that awkward moment when she realized she had sat at the wrong table. Emma couldn't help but laugh at herself. What a mess it had been. But there was something in the way Liam had looked at her, something that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely invisible. When she arrived at the diner, the usual hustle and bustle greeted her. She tied her apron around her waist and began her shift, but her mind kept drifting back to the encounter from the night before. As she took a deep breath and walked up to the counter, she caught a glimpse of a man in a tailored suit sitting in the far corner. She blinked, her heart racing for a moment. Could it be? No, it couldn't. She quickly turned away, pushing the thought out of her mind. But the image of him lingered, just as it had since the moment they met. It was going to be a long day, but in the back of her mind, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she'd ever see him again. And if she did, what would happen next? The next few days were a blur for Emma. She tried to focus on her work at the diner, but her mind kept drifting back to the man she had met that night. Liam Parker. She hadn't expected to think about him as much as she had, but his face kept appearing in her thoughts. The way he looked at her, the soft smile he gave her, and the way he listened to her stories without judgment. She hadn't met many people like him. As she wiped down the counter, she found herself wondering if he was really as perfect as she remembered or if she was just imagining things. One afternoon, after another long shift at the diner, Emma was walking home when she saw a familiar face standing across the street. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized Liam. He was standing next to a sleek black car, his posture relaxed but his gaze fixed on her. She stopped in her tracks, unsure of what to do. She hadn't expected to see him again, let alone in a place like this. What was he doing here? Emma, Liam called out, a friendly smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. She hesitated before crossing the street toward him. She couldn't help but feel nervous, but there was also a strange comfort in the way he greeted her. He didn't seem awkward or out of place, like most people would in her situation. He looked genuine. "Hey, Liam," Emma said, trying to hide the surprise in her voice. "What are you doing here?" Liam chuckled, stepping forward. "I came to find you," he said, his eyes lighting up. "I've been thinking about you, about our conversation. I wanted to apologize for the confusion the other night." Emma raised an eyebrow, still trying to process the fact that he was standing right in front of her. "Apologize? You didn't do anything wrong," she said, genuinely confused. "It was my mistake. I'm the one who sat at the wrong table." Liam shook his head. "No, it's not just that. I wanted to apologize for not being honest with you. I wasn't upfront about who I am." He paused for a moment, looking at her seriously. "I'm not just some guy in tech. I'm Liam Parker, CEO of Parker Innovations." Emma's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't expected this. The man she had been thinking about for days was a millionaire CEO? The same man who had been so kind, so down to earth? She was speechless for a moment, trying to process the revelation. "I know this is a lot to take in," Liam continued, his tone sincere. "But I didn't want you to think I was just another rich guy who pretends to be someone he's not. I've been following your story, your dreams of opening an art studio, and I admire that. I wanted to get to know you, Emma. Not because of who I am, but because of who you are." Emma felt a mix of emotions rise in her chest. On the one hand, she was shocked by the truth. On the other, she couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth from his words. It wasn't about his wealth or status, it was about the way he had genuinely listened to her, something she wasn't used to. For a moment, she stood there, unsure of how to respond. Finally, she found her voice. "I don't know what to say," she said, still processing the news. "You're a CEO? And you still wanted to talk to me?" She shook her head, incredulous. "I don't know if I'm flattered or just confused." Liam smiled, the warmth in his expression never fading. "I get it. This is probably a lot to wrap your head around. But I'm serious about getting to know you, Emma. I've never met someone like you before." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "I'd like to take you out. Just the two of us. No pressure, no expectations. What do you say?" Emma looked at him, unsure of what to do. A part of her wanted to say yes, to explore whatever connection they had started that night. But another part of her was hesitant. She had her own life, her own dreams. She wasn't sure if she was ready to jump into something like this, especially with someone who had so much more than she did. But there was something about him that made her want to take the chance. After a long pause, Emma finally spoke. "All right," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'll go. But only because I'm curious to see where this goes. But no more secrets, okay?" Liam's smile widened, and he nodded. "No more secrets, I promise." As they stood there, the world around them seemed to fade away. In that moment, Emma realized that her life was about to change in ways she never expected. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope, a possibility that maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of something real. The next evening, Emma found herself standing in front of a small, upscale restaurant in downtown New York. The lights were warm and inviting, casting a soft glow on the sidewalk. She hesitated for a moment, adjusting her second-hand dress and smoothing her hair. She still wasn't sure what she was doing here. A date with Liam Parker, the CEO of one of the most successful tech companies in the world? It felt surreal. But she had agreed, and part of her was curious to see where this would go. She stepped inside, immediately greeted by the host, who led her to a quiet corner table. Liam was already sitting there, his sharp suit a stark contrast to her simple dress. He looked up and smiled when he saw her, his expression warm and genuine. Emma's heart fluttered. She had to admit, the man had a way of making her feel at ease, even in the most intimidating of places. "Hey, Emma," Liam said, standing up to greet her. "You look beautiful." His words caught her off guard, and she felt her cheeks flush. She wasn't used to compliments, especially from someone like him. "Thank you," she said, smiling nervously. She sat down across from him, the table between them feeling like a barrier she couldn't quite break. She had no idea how to act in a place like this, with someone like him. But he made it easier, as always. "This place is really nice," she said, trying to fill the silence. Liam nodded. "It's one of my favorites. I thought it might be more comfortable for us. We're here to talk, after all, not to be surrounded by crowds." He smiled at her, his eyes soft. "So, tell me more about your art. I know you've been working hard on your dream. I want to hear about it." Emma felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had expected the usual small talk, the kind of surface-level conversation she was used to with most people. But Liam wasn't like that. He wanted to know about her, about what really mattered to her. She took a deep breath and began to share her passion for painting, her dreams of opening a studio, and the struggles she faced along the way. As she spoke, she saw his eyes light up. He listened attentively, asking questions, showing genuine interest in her words. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she was being seen, truly seen. She hadn't realized how much she longed for this kind of connection until now. When she finished talking, Liam leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. "You're amazing, Emma," he said, his voice sincere. "I can tell you've put everything into this. Your passion is contagious. It's rare to meet someone who still believes in something so wholeheartedly." Emma felt a mix of emotions at his word. It was strange, this feeling of being understood by someone who had so much more than she did. She had spent so long feeling invisible, and now, here she was, sitting across from a man who not only saw her but appreciated her for who she was. It was overwhelming in the best way. "I don't know what to say," Emma murmured, feeling a little shy. "I've always had this dream, but it feels so far away. It's hard when everything seems to be working against you." Liam reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. Emma's breath caught in her throat at the gesture. "You don't have to do this alone, you know," he said softly. "If you ever need anything, help, support, guidance, I am here for you. You don't have to struggle in silence." His words were like a balm to the wounds she hadn't even realized were there. She had been so focused on surviving, on keeping her head above water, that she had never allowed herself to believe that anyone could truly help her. But here Liam was, offering his support without hesitation. For a moment, they sat in silence, the soft hum of the restaurant surrounding them. Emma felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of hope that had been missing for so long. She wasn't sure where this was headed, but she knew one thing for sure: she had never felt more alive. When the waiter arrived to take their order, Liam didn't let go of her hand immediately. Emma felt the connection between them, an unspoken understanding that went beyond words. As the night went on, the conversation shifted from dreams and passions to light-hearted jokes, and Emma found herself laughing in a way she hadn't in a long time. By the time dessert arrived, the initial awkwardness had melted away, and Emma felt completely at ease in Liam's company. She didn't feel like she was sitting across from a CEO anymore. She just felt like she was with someone who cared. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. As they finished their meal, Liam looked at her with a soft smile. "I'm really glad we did this," he said. I hope this isn't the last time we meet like this. Emma smiled back, her heart swelling with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. I'm glad too, she said, her voice quiet but steady. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm open to finding out. And in that moment, as they stood up to leave, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, life had a way of surprising her in ways she never could have imagined. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. She found herself replaying every moment of her dinner with Liam over and over in her mind. The way he had listened to her, really listened, and how he had made her feel like her dreams weren't just fantasies. She hadn't expected him to be so genuine, so down-to-earth. She wasn't sure what she was expecting from a millionaire CEO, but it certainly wasn't what she had gotten. And now, as she walked into work, the memory of their conversation still lingered, making her heart flutter every time she thought about it. That morning, she had received a message from Liam asking if she wanted to join him for lunch. Her first instinct was to say no, to avoid complicating things, but something inside her pushed her to accept. After all, she had agreed to give this a chance, and she was curious to see where it would lead. When she arrived at the restaurant he had suggested, she felt a little nervous. She had only ever been to places like this in her dreams, not in real life. As she walked through the door, she was immediately greeted by the host, who led her to a private booth in the back of the restaurant. When she sat down, Liam was already there, looking just as composed and confident as ever. His presence still had the ability to make her feel a little out of place, but she quickly reminded herself that he was the same person who had listened to her dreams just a few days ago. This wasn't about his wealth or status, it was about the connection they had begun to form. Hey, Emma, Liam said with a smile, standing up to greet her. I'm really glad you could make it. His voice was warm, as always, and his smile made her feel a little less out of place. Thanks for inviting me, Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. This place looks amazing. Liam nodded. It's one of my favorite spots. Quiet, but with great food. Just the way I like it. He gestured for her to sit down, and she did, still feeling the nerves in her stomach. But she was starting to get used to the idea of spending time with him. As the waiter brought over their menus, they exchanged small talk, the kind that was easy and casual. But underneath the surface, Emma could feel the tension between them, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. What were they really doing here? Was this just another lunch between two people, or was there something more? Finally, after a few moments of awkward silence, Liam looked at her with a serious expression. Emma, he began, his voice softer than usual, I wanted to talk to you about something. I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I feel like there's something real between us. And I want to be upfront with you. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure where this was going, but she could tell it was important. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam leaned forward slightly, his eyes meeting hers. I know this might seem sudden, but I want to be honest with you about something. I've been thinking a lot about you, about what you said the other night. You've got this fire in you, this passion that I admire. And I don't want to see you waste it, Emma. I want to help you achieve your dreams. Emma felt her chest tighten. Was he offering her a job? Was he trying to help her open her art studio? She didn't know if she was ready for that kind of help after all. She had always done everything on her own. But Liam's words felt sincere, and there was a part of her that wanted to take a leap of faith. What are you saying, Liam? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. What exactly do you want to help me with? Liam took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. I want to support your art, he said simply. I want to help you open your studio. I've seen your passion, and I believe in it. I don't know where this is going between us, but I want to see you succeed. And I'm offering you my help to make that happen. Emma's mind was racing. This wasn't what she had expected. It wasn't even close. She had thought that maybe they were just two people getting to know each other, but this? This was different. She was stunned. She didn't know how to respond. I don't know what to say, Emma said, her voice shaky. This is a lot. You don't have to do this for me, Liam. I've always done things on my own. I've never needed anyone's help. Liam smiled softly, his expression understanding. I get that, but sometimes, we all need a little help to make our dreams come true. I'm not asking for anything in return. I just want to see you do what you've always dreamed of. You deserve it, Emma. For a moment, Emma just sat there, trying to process what he had said. She had always been so independent, so used to relying on herself. The thought of accepting help, especially from someone like Liam, was overwhelming. But then she remembered the way he had looked at her, the way he had listened to her dreams, and she realized that maybe this wasn't about charity. Maybe this was about believing in her. Finally, she looked up at him, her heart racing. Okay, she said, her voice steady. I'll take you up on your offer. But just know that I'm going to work hard for it. I won't let you down. Liam smiled, his eyes full of pride. I know you won't, he said softly. And that's why I believe in you. As they continued their meal, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point in her life. She didn't know where this road would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like anything was possible. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. Emma found herself working harder than ever, but now, there was a new sense of purpose in her life. Liam had kept his promise. He helped her set up meetings with people in the art world, connected her with potential investors, and gave her the guidance she never thought she would have. Slowly but surely, Emma's dream of opening her own art studio was becoming a reality. As the days went by, Emma and Liam spent more time together. It wasn't just about business anymore. They would grab coffee in the mornings, talk about their dreams, and share stories about their lives. Emma had started to look forward to those moments more than anything else. And each time she was with him, she couldn't help but feel a growing connection between them. It was subtle at first, but it was there. She found herself thinking about him even when they weren't together. One evening, after a particularly productive day of meetings, Liam invited Emma to a small art gallery opening. I thought you might like it, he had said. It's low-key, just a few people I know. But the art is incredible. Emma was hesitant at first, not sure if she would be comfortable in that kind of setting, but she agreed to go. She was excited to see the work, but also to spend more time with Liam outside of their usual routine. When they arrived at the gallery, Emma felt slightly out of place. The walls were lined with modern, abstract paintings, and the crowd was composed of well-dressed art collectors and critics. She felt like a fish out of water in her simple dress, but Liam's presence beside her made her feel a little more at ease. He introduced her to a few people, but it was clear that his attention was mostly on her. Emma noticed that whenever their eyes met, he seemed to look at her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. After a while, they found a quiet corner in the back of the gallery. Liam looked at her, his expression soft. I'm really proud of you, Emma, he said, his voice low. You're doing it. You're making your dream happen. Emma smiled, her heart warming at his words. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you, Liam. I don't know how I can ever repay you for everything you've done for me. Liam shook his head, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. You don't have to repay me, he said. I'm just happy to see you succeeding. You deserve this. For a moment, there was silence between them, a comfortable kind of silence. Emma could feel her heartbeat quicken as she looked at him. He had been there for her when no one else had, supporting her when she felt like giving up. And now, as she stood there with him, surrounded by art and people who believed in her, she realized something. She wasn't just grateful for his help. She was starting to care about him, in a way that went beyond friendship. Liam, she began, her voice tentative, I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm starting to feel something for you. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, she regretted saying them. What if she was misreading things? What if he didn't feel the same? But Liam's expression softened, and he reached out, gently taking her hand in his. I've been feeling the same way, Emma, he said quietly. I just didn't want to rush anything. But I can't ignore it anymore. Emma's heart soared as he spoke. She had been afraid to admit it to herself, let alone say it out loud. But hearing him say the words made everything feel so much more real. She smiled, her eyes meeting his. I'm glad you feel the same, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to ruin what we've built, but I can't help how I feel. You won't ruin anything, Liam said, his thumb gently brushing over her hand. I promise you. They stood there for a moment, their hands intertwined, the world around them fading into the background. It felt like a turning point, like something had shifted between them, and there was no going back. Emma didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the evening continued, Emma and Liam walked through the gallery, talking more freely now, the tension between them replaced with something lighter, more hopeful. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't alone in the world. She had Liam by her side, and together, they were creating something beautiful, both in her career and in their growing connection. Later, as they left the gallery, Liam turned to her with a smile. I'm glad you came tonight, he said. This is just the beginning, Emma. I have a feeling we're going to do great things together. Emma smiled back, her heart full. I think you're right, she said, her voice filled with certainty. Together. The days following the gallery event felt like a whirlwind for Emma. She and Liam spent more time together, growing closer with each passing moment. Emma couldn't help but feel like she was walking on air. The bond they had was undeniable, and it was more than just the work they were doing together. She had started to see Liam in a new light, not just as a mentor or someone helping her achieve her dreams, but as someone who genuinely cared for her. The moments they shared, whether they were walking through the city or enjoying quiet dinners, made her realize just how much she had come to depend on him. But even as their connection deepened, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that had lingered at the back of her mind. She was still trying to navigate this new dynamic with Liam. She had never been the type to rely on anyone, especially not someone with as much power and influence as he had. She feared that one day, the weight of their differences would cause a rift between them. One afternoon, as they sat in his office discussing plans for her art studio, Emma finally voiced her concerns. Liam, she began, her voice hesitant, I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, the success, the attention, the world you live in. It's overwhelming. Liam looked up from the papers in front of him, his expression softening. Emma, you're not in this alone. You never have been. I know this is all new, and I can't pretend to know exactly how you're feeling, but I'm here for you. I've always been here for you, and I want to continue helping you achieve everything you've dreamed of. But it's not just about business or success, it's about us, too. Emma's heart skipped a beat at his words. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She had never expected Liam to open up like this, but in that moment, she realized that he, too, was invested in their relationship. I want to believe that, Emma said quietly, her gaze meeting his. But sometimes I feel like I'm just a project to you. Like I'm not really a part of your world, and I'm scared that one day, I'll mess everything up. What if I'm not good enough for you? Liam stood up and walked over to where she was sitting. He gently cupped her face in his hands, tilting her chin up to look at him. Emma, he said, his voice tender, you are more than enough. You've always been enough. This isn't about what you can do for me, it's about what we can do together. I've never cared about anyone the way I care about you. And I'm not going anywhere. For a moment, Emma just stared at him, the intensity of his words sinking in. She felt a rush of emotions, relief, fear, hope swirling inside her. This wasn't the kind of relationship she had ever imagined, but it was real, and it was hers. I'm scared, too, Liam continued, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. But that's okay. We're in this together. And I'll always be here to remind you of your worth, even when you doubt it. I believe in you, Emma. And I always will. Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, unable to find the words to express how much his support meant to her. She leaned into his touch, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. The fear that had clouded her thoughts slowly began to fade. Maybe this was the leap of faith she had been waiting for. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm not used to this. But I think I'm starting to believe in us, too." Liam smiled softly, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "You don't have to do anything alone anymore, not ever again." As Emma looked into his eyes, she realized that, for the first time in her life, she didn't need to be afraid of leaning on someone. She didn't need to carry everything by herself. With Liam by her side, she could face whatever came next both in her career and in her heart. As the weeks passed, Emma began to feel more comfortable in her new world. With Liam's support, her art studio was taking shape faster than she had ever imagined. The paperwork was done, the space was leased, and she had started to hire a small team to help bring her vision to life. It was everything she had dreamed of, and yet, as exciting as it all was, there was still a small part of her that felt uncertain. She had never been one to lean on anyone, and even though Liam had proven time and again that he was there for her, the fear of relying too much on him still lingered in the back of her mind. One evening, as they sat in Liam's office going over the final details of the studio launch, Emma couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by everything. The excitement, the pressure, the new responsibilities, it was all so much. She felt the weight of her dreams pressing down on her, and for a moment, it felt like she couldn't breathe. She stood up abruptly, pacing across the room, her mind racing. "Liam," she said, her voice a little shaky, "I don't know if I can do this. It's all happening so fast. I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up." She ran a hand through her hair, frustration evident in her posture. Liam watched her for a moment, his expression softening. He understood her fear, the feeling of being overwhelmed when everything started to fall into place. He knew how much this meant to her, and he also knew how hard it was for her to let go of control. "Emma," he said, his voice steady and calm, "you don't have to do this alone. You've never been alone in this. I'm here to help you, just like I've always been. You don't have to carry the weight of this by yourself." He stood up and walked over to her, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. Emma closed her eyes, feeling his warmth and strength grounding her. "I know," she whispered, "but it's hard. I've always had to fight for everything on my own. I'm scared that if I let go, if I rely on you too much, I'll lose everything." Liam gave her a reassuring smile, his thumbs lightly brushing her arm. "You're not losing anything, Emma. You're gaining everything. You're gaining a future, a chance to create something beautiful, and you're gaining the trust of someone who believes in you. Letting go doesn't mean you're weak, it means you trust yourself enough to accept help." For a moment, Emma stood there, taking in his words. The uncertainty she had been feeling began to melt away, replaced by a sense of clarity she hadn't expected. She realized that trusting Liam didn't mean giving up control, it meant embracing the support that would help her succeed. "I've always been so afraid of trusting people," Emma admitted quietly. "I've been on my own for so long that it's hard to imagine having someone by my side. But with you, it feels different." Liam smiled softly, his hands still on her shoulders. "That's because it is different. We're a team, Emma. You're not alone anymore. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, no matter what." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, and she finally let herself relax into his touch. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of the future they were building together. She could feel her heart softening, the walls she had so carefully built around herself beginning to crumble. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't think I could do this without you." Liam leaned in, brushing a gentle kiss against her forehead. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here, always." As they stood there together, the world outside seemed to fade away. Emma felt like she had found a place where she could finally breathe, a place where her dreams were within reach, not just because of her hard work, but because she had someone who truly cared about her success. She didn't have to be afraid of the future anymore. With Liam by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. As the opening night for Emma's art studio drew closer, the excitement in the air was palpable. The space that had once been an empty shell was now filled with vibrant colors, intricate sculptures, and pieces of her soul displayed for the world to see. Liam had been there every step of the way, supporting her, helping with the final touches, and making sure everything was perfect. It wasn't just the art that had transformed the spacey, it was Emma herself. She had grown, and so had her confidence. She was no longer the woman who had struggled alone. Now, she had a team, she had Liam, and most importantly, she had faith in herself. The night of the grand opening arrived, and the gallery was buzzing with excitement. People from all walks of life, art lovers, collectors, and critics filled the room, admiring her work and discussing her pieces with a sense of awe. Emma stood at the front of the room, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never imagined that her dream would become a reality so quickly. She could hardly believe it. And yet, here she was, surrounded by people who were not just interested in her art, but in her as a person. As she walked through the gallery, she couldn't help but notice Liam standing at the back, watching her with a proud smile. It was a look that made her feel seen, appreciated, and most of all, loved. He had always been there for her, believing in her even when she doubted herself. And now, as she looked around the room at the success she had built, she realized that he had played a big part in making it all happen. She walked over to him, her eyes locking with his. "This is amazing," Emma said, her voice full of awe. "I can't believe this is happening." Liam smiled softly, his hand gently brushing hers. "You did this, Emma. All of it. I'm just here to watch you shine." For a moment, they stood there together, the noise of the gallery fading into the background. Emma felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She had found not only success but a love that had supported her through every step of the journey. This wasn't just a dream anymore, it was her life. As the night went on, Emma found herself surrounded by well-wishers, but it was Liam who stood out the most. He was the one who had helped her find the courage to take risks, the one who had supported her when she needed it most. And as she looked at him now, she realized just how lucky she was to have him by her side. Later, as the event started to wind down and the guests began to leave, Emma and Liam stood outside the gallery, the cool night air brushing against their skin. Emma turned to him, her heart full. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Liam smiled, his eyes soft. "You did it, Emma. I was just lucky enough to be a part of it." She took a deep breath, looking up at the stars in the sky. The world felt infinite in that moment, full of possibilities. "I don't know what the future holds," she said softly, "but I know I'm not afraid anymore. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Liam nodded, his hand gently brushing the back of her hair. "Together," he repeated. "That's all we need." As they stood there, side by side, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. The future was uncertain, but with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face anything that came their way. She had found not just success, but love, and that was the greatest gift of all.